Hi, I'm Seth, and I'm going to be an Interfaith Reverend. So welcome to church, motherfuckers! Welcome to the good world.
1, 2, 3.
So come on into a place that is fine. I'll be your friend and you can be mine. The world is a stream of constant bullshit, but that doesn't mean there's not a whole lot of good shit. You start with the lean and we can make something different. Let's build a world that is good.
This is a show for adults. Yeah, we're dancing. Hi, friends. Welcome to the good world. My name is Seth. I am delighted to have you here. I have officially been approved. I am going to be ordained as an Interfaith Reverend in May. It's very exciting. I went through my whole process. I had my panel this week. They were very enthusiastic. It was very nice. They clearly read, my panel clearly read my extremely detailed 19 and a half page we'll call it a treatise. It's a questionnaire, but I had to respond to. I wrote a lot, and they read it very closely. They asked great questions. We had a great time, and so I have been approved. I am through my seminary process, and so I am here today, back doing this thing that I enjoy doing. Thank you for being here. I'm delighted to have you. So, what I wanted to talk about today, because I am choosing to be an Interfaith Reverend, is I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact, what does interfaith mean, first off, right? A lot of people hear that very often. Actually, the question I get is, what does that mean? Is that like Catholic and Protestant? And I'm like, well, you know, I got Jewish face number 7 over here. And also I'm kind of a Buddhist and kind of a Sufi. I like a lot of traditions. And I've talked about this on here before, right? I value the different perspectives that different religious traditions offer. And so interfaith is about really connecting with all of them. It is about, I would say for me, it is not about the idea of God so much as it is about the idea of embracing the mystery. And I think I've also talked about this before, but something that can happen with people in any religion, and often in things that are not religions, is people can get really dogmatic, right? They can get very, very certain that their way is right and everyone else's way is wrong. And you don't have to be religious to believe that. There are a lot of atheists who also do that, who sort of use it as a way of being superior towards people who are religious. There are also a lot of people who are religious who use it as a way of being superior towards people who either aren't religious or who practice a different religious tradition, and that is not my approach, right? My approach is not one of superiority at all. It's, these all offer different things, and those different things have different value that sometimes is really complementary. Good. My little bell just went off, and I have the wrong timer on, so that's promising. That's fine. I don't need a timer. We can just keep going. So, so for me, it's not about the idea of a God. It's about the mystery. It's just about, we don't know what this is, but all of this is amazing. And that is something that every culture throughout history on this planet has had some version of. They've all had some version of, wow, this is amazing. In the Sikh tradition, Sikh, Sikh, the sort of classic refrain in the Sikh tradition is this word Waheguru, which roughly, and I apologize for probably pronouncing that terribly. I am a white dude, and English is my native language and my only language that I speak fluently. So, unfortunately, when I talk about a lot of stuff, I'm going to end up pronouncing it very poorly, and I apologize. So this idea of Waheguru, there was a Sikh guru who I met at some point, and she translated it as roughly, wow, God, right? That's it. That's the entire practice, is just sitting there and going, wow, God, right? Wow. You just look around and wow, there's so much here. It's all so incredible. And that is one perspective. But I think that same idea can be seen all over Judaism, and particularly Kabbalah, all over Christianity, and particularly Christian mysticism, all over Buddhism. It's all over the place, that same idea. It's all over Sufism, which is sort of Islamic mysticism. And that to me is where all of the the meat, all of the gold, we'll call it. That's where all the gold is in that area of wow. Because if we can approach things and say, okay, well, this is different and I don't know what it is. I've never seen it before. So I'm just going to observe it and be amazed by it. If we can get to that place instead of fighting each other over who is more right, then we can be in a much better place and things can work a lot better. We don't have to have a lot of the what my theme song refers to as the stream of constant bullshit, right? We don't have to have that as much. And something that is going on right now here in the United States of America, where I live, is I think it is fair to say there is an attack on the idea of diversity. I don't think it is controversial to say that there is an attack on the idea of diversity, right? The Trump administration is in power, and look, I know I used to work in politics. I don't really want to be talking about politics very much on this show, but a big part of what is going on is an attack on, they tend to use the term, the abbreviation DEI. Functionally, that's an attack on diversity. And there's this idea that, oh, we've gone too far in favor of diversity because we're getting unqualified people in places. And I tend to think mostly that's bullshit. I will tell you, in my own personal experience, workplaces that I have worked that are more diverse make better decisions and do a better job than places that are less diverse. And the places that I've talked in the past about some of the people I have worked with and worked for who are, I'll kind of go with the word charlatans, certainly who are very, very confident and their success is built on their ability to project confidence, which is, in the math world, we would say orthogonal. It's completely independent, right? There's your confidence and your competence are not actually the same thing. There are a lot of people who are very competent who are not necessarily super confident about their decisions. There are a lot of people who are extremely confident about their decisions, but maybe not so competent. And in fact, there's research coming out of the academic world. It's fairly old at this point. It's from when I was in grad school, but there's a professor named Phil Tetlock who looked at expert predictions, looked very closely at them, and actually found that the people who were the most accurate predictors were the people who were less confident. The more someone made a very confident prediction, the more likely they were to be wrong about all of their predictions. So that's something to keep in mind too, right? In fact, I said competence and confidence are orthogonal, independent. In fact, they're kind of inversely correlated. A lot of the time, people who are really confident are actually not very competent. That is both my personal experience and that is academic research. But so we have this idea of diversity is somehow getting in the way of, it's not somehow, like the theory of the case for how it is happening is straightforward, right? But the idea that diversity is somehow making worse decisions. And so I want to use an analogy for a moment to talk about this because it's very similar to what I do in the interfaith world, right? I'm not saying Christianity is right and I will only research Christianity and everything else is bad. I'm not saying Judaism is right and I will only be Jewish and everything else is bad. I'm not saying Buddhism is right and everything else is bad, right? I am interfaith because all of these perspectives have value. They all bring their own thing to the table. And it is important to me to learn more about what they bring to the table so I can get a better understanding. I've also, I think, talked in the past about there's a teaching, I believe, from Buddhism, and the idea is that religion is a finger pointing at the moon, and often we mistake the finger for the moon. The moon is what's important, but we're like, ooh, we just fall in love with the finger. It's so beautiful and it's closer to us, so it's easier to relate to, and so we end up forgetting that actually we're all looking at the same moon, we just have different fingers pointing at it. And so my interfaith perspective is, I don't want to necessarily say it informs my views about diversity, but it comes from the same place as my views about diversity. And so the analogy that has been kind of bouncing around in my head, it's not quite the same as the finger pointing at the moon. But let's imagine that we are a team that is approaching a canyon and we want to build in the canyon, right? We want to put up a house or we want to put up a house and build a city inside the canyon. And I'm going to be very clear here that I do not actually believe the claim that white men are smarter or more competent. But let's accept for the moment that that claim that is very, very dubious, and I'll come back to that in a minute too. If we are approaching this canyon, we want to build a house down there. And I have the people with the best vision, right? My team all has the best vision, but we are all looking at the canyon from this perspective. There's another side of the canyon. We can't get over there. We can't see the canyon from this perspective. So if we write our blueprints and design this house in the canyon, even if everyone with me has incredibly good vision, we're still only getting one perspective. If we take someone who, let's say they don't have as good vision, and again, the analogy for me does not hold up there, but let's say that that's the case. If we put someone with, we'll say, slightly worse vision over there at, if it's a clock and I'm at 6 o'clock, we'll put them at 10 o'clock. We can get a much better perspective on the canyon where we're trying to build things. I'll give you a different analogy that's very similar. We have two eyes, right? We have two eyes. They are in slightly different positions because that helps us see in 3 dimensions. Almost all of us, one of the eyes sees slightly better than the other. Can you imagine saying, well, this is the best eye, so I'm going to cover this eye, and now everything's going to be better, and I'm going to make the best decisions? That's obviously not how it works. Different perspectives are much, much more valuable for helping us make good decisions, for helping us see truth, than everyone looking from the same perspective. Everyone looking from the same perspective is how we get lots and lots of groupthink. It's how the Iraq War started, right? All kinds of terrible decisions throughout history have happened because a group of people in a room with a lot of power have all been looking at something from the same perspective, and they've all talked each other into believing that their perspective is right and every other perspective is wrong. And it's been a disaster. And so what we actually need, if we want our society to function, is to incorporate different perspectives, to listen to and understand and respect different perspectives, to realize that my perspective from where I stand is no more or less valid than your perspective from over there at 10 o'clock. And in fact, if we listen to each other and talk about it, my perspective can inform your perspective, and your perspective can inform my perspective. And that is a good thing. That is unquestionably a good thing. But instead, we have a bunch of people who are very, very defensive and who take it personally that there might be other people who have ideas that they don't, who might have a different perspective than they do, and who are reacting to it like petulant children and are trying to destroy everything because they cannot handle the idea that someone else might know something they don't. It's not great. It's kind of a problem. We're going to take a quick break right here, and we will be right back.
Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe.
Yes, friends, that is your regularly scheduled reminder to please click the like button, click the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. If you're listening to it on a podcast platform, share this podcast with your friends. You can go and rate this podcast. You can leave a review. If you're watching, you can leave a comment. The algorithm loves engagement, and we are all at the mercy of the algorithm. I know I said I love the mystery, but my life is controlled less by the mystery and more by the algorithm. So if you want to help me out with the algorithm, I would really appreciate it. You can go to goodworld.love. You can sponsor me on Patreon, or you can give me money, which I would not complain about. And also, I don't know what to do with my Patreon. So if you have like perks that you are interested in, please feel free to either leave a message below in the comments or to go onto the Patreon page and suggest something. I don't know what people might be interested in. If I don't know if you want to subscribe and we just have a Zoom chat sometime or something, or if you're in the Sacramento area, we can go get lunch. I don't know. I'm open to ideas. Also on goodworld.love, we have merch. This shirt is available. You can have this, not this exact shirt, but one that looks exactly like it. You can have not this exact mug, which I keep markers in, but one that looks exactly like this exact mug. It has my face on it on one side. It has my face on it on another side. It's a really high quality mug. You can have your coffee. It's great. Okay, so let's get back into, I know I said need to accept for the moment the assumption that the the straight white dudes who have the money are the smarter people, and I said I don't believe it. And I want to be really clear about something. I'm also not saying that straight white dudes are dumber, right? I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying everyone else is smarter. It's not actually about smartness, because for one thing, smart means a lot of different kinds of things. I am very, very smart at least compared to the population, I'm very, very smart at math. I'm not as smart at math as some people I know who are really smart at math. Compared to the population, I'm very, very smart at music. I am not very smart at organizing things. I am smart at languages that are close enough to English that I can learn them easily. I am terrible at tonal languages like Chinese and Vietnamese, and Yoruba is another one that is also a tonal language. Like there are lots of things that I'm very smart at, and there are lots of things that I'm very not smart at, and that is okay because that is called being a human. But so we have this idea that maybe there are certain demographics that have evolved to be smarter. And here is a thing that is true, that is in a lot of the research about this, and that is often used to justify this. People say, well, white men have more money and have more success in our system. Higher test scores is often used as an example. And therefore, that must mean that actually genetically, white men must be smarter. And let's talk about nature versus nurture, right? Because there are a lot of things that shape your reality that are not just your genes. And I will tell you, as a white man, I have gone through life in a lot of places, and I know this is not true for every white man, but this has been my experience. People just welcome me in. People tell me, oh, you're going to be really good at this. And they start teaching me something and I learn it and I get reinforcement. And there has been research. For example, there was a study, I am blanking on the name of it. It was definitely written about in Rutger Bregman's book, Humankind, which I've mentioned before. I'll put a link down below. But there was a study, not the most ethical thing, but they went to a bunch of teachers and they told these teachers, kindergarten teachers, I believe, certainly elementary school, they said, hey, this group of students are your like fast track smart students. And these, 10 students over here, it's 10 and 10. These 10 students are, they're your problem students. You need to look out for them. And here's the thing. It wasn't true. It wasn't based on anything. The people who did the research just flipped a bunch of coins and said, okay, we're going to tell the teachers these people are smart and tell the teachers these students are a problem. And we're going to see what happens. And can you guess what happened? I bet you can. What happened is the students who the teachers thought were smart did much better. The students who the teachers thought were a problem got into more trouble because the teachers were expecting that. And so they gave extra attention to the kids they were told were smarter. And they had a much, much shorter fuse with the kids they were told were not smart. That is a thing that happens constantly all around us. And that is a thing that helped me get through school, right? I was given the benefit of the doubt. I am still often given the benefit of the doubt in a way that a lot of people are not. So again, it's not just genes. Even if we're just talking test scores, it's not just genes. I will also add, having come from a family where we had, I've talked about this before, I think, like we had a good amount of money. We did not have private jet money, but we had a good amount of money. We had enough money that I went to private school starting in 3rd grade. We were not like struggling. And when I was in high school and I was getting ready to take the SATs, I had tutors, plural. I had a math tutor and I had an English tutor, and I did very well on my SATs. I think I've talked about that before too. But I had tutors for both of them. I had private tutors who came to my house and helped me strategize for the SATs, and I did well. It helps a lot that I had people who were helping me do better. And so when we're talking about test scores, that's a thing that happens a lot. When we're talking about people who have more money, I know I have gotten hired because I have personal connections to the people doing the hiring. I have tried, when I have hired people, to do a bit less of using my own personal connections to hire people, but like that creeps in. That's inevitably part of it. And so we end up in this situation where people who look like me end up performing well on tests, end up in positions of power, end up with money. And so we get kind of I'm sure you've heard this. Correlation does not equal causation, right? That is a very, very classic thing. But we see this correlation, and some people who also are the self-appointed really smart people say, oh, this is not just correlation, it must be causation. And then they write books about it that are mathematically very questionable. So I'll give you another example. There's a famous book. I'm not going to give you the name of it, honestly, because it's junk science. I'm blanking on the name of it, but I will point you to a better book that talks about that book. But there was a famous book written in, I think, the 80s, in which it purported to demonstrate that white people, and white men in particular, were smarter because they had better test scores and they were more successful in life. And when you're talking in scientific terms about something not just being correlation, but being causation, something causing something, you need to have an underlying coin flip for it. And you can't have that in this context. And so if you have these disparate outcomes, again, it comes back to nature versus nurture. And if what you're saying is, well, I think it must be nature, then you're just dismissing the nurture side of it. Basically, you are presented with a situation in which it's either institutional structures, a legacy of slavery, a legacy of Jim Crow, all of these things, redlining, all of these legacies at the aggregate level have an impact. That's one possibility. Or you can say, well, I don't think it's that. I think it's actually just genetics. That's not happening in the math. No one who is doing any math about this, they may be claiming to make that separation, but that's not happening. You cannot mathematically control for those two things because everyone who has the genetics that make them a minority also lives under the system that treats minorities differently. You cannot separate those two things. And so if you're going to decide that the cause is just the genetics, then you are choosing to decide that the system, the structure, all of that does not matter. You are choosing to throw that out. And so I said I would get into this. And so that's kind of as much as I want to get into it, because honestly, I think it comes from a place of insecurity. I feel more comfortable talking about this from my experience as a white man. There is a lot of pressure put by this same exact system, right? This is a system that says white men are supposed to be smarter. We're supposed to be more successful. It tells us all of these things that are expected of us and then shames us when we don't achieve those things, right? It says, if you're not a CEO of a company, you're not a good enough white man. And so all of our value, all of our perception of our own value gets wrapped up in professional success, also in personal success. This is stuff that I also talked a bit about, or we talked about in my last episode with Sean Donaghy and brother Munch Misha, Michael Becca, who is a former monk. We also talked about this idea of, I think Michael referred to it as the curriculum, right? You're supposed to have professional success. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to check these boxes and that'll make you happy. And then you get to that point and you're not happy. And so I think where a lot of the reaction against diversity comes from is from this place that says, all of my value as a white man comes from professional success, comes from being married, comes from, not in my case, but in many of my friends' cases, from being a parent, right? There are all of these check boxes that we're supposed to be checking. If you're a teenager, you're a white man, you're like, I'm supposed to be getting laid. And that's a checkbox. And if you're not checking that box, you also feel bad about that. I tell you from personal experience. So yeah, we have all of this pressure on us and we feel like we're supposed to be a thing. And when we're not able to be that thing for whatever reason, or maybe just the system is not set up in a way for us to be that thing, we want someone to blame. And the easiest people to blame are the people who have those jobs, right? And so we think, well, they're just getting those jobs because they look different and because of diversity. And so again, coming back around to this idea of, even if we accept the premise, which I don't, and which I don't think we should, even if we accept the premise that this eye is better at seeing than this eye, we shouldn't just close off this one eye. It is still more useful to have a range of perspectives. It still helps us understand things better. My last video of 2024, the one about the fruit trees and the fighter planes, I talked about survivorship bias and how we only ask people who have a lot of money and professional success how they got to have professional success. We don't really talk to the people who, for whatever reason, did not find success. I am in sort of a position where I had some professional success, but I stopped working in politics because I felt like there was a ceiling, there was a cap on what I could do. And I'm going to tell you, the problem was not that other people were getting jobs who didn't look like me. The problem was that in order to get the jobs I wanted, I had to convince people with a lot of money that they should give their money to me to do the thing instead of giving it to someone else. And that creates an incentive. This is also something I talked about in the Fighter Pilots and Fruit Trees episode. Ooh, my voice just cracked a little. That's some good late onset puberty. I found myself in this position where I was like, okay, if I'm going to raise money, I need to be able to convince people to give me money. And if I'm out here trying to do a thing that's going to help determine a difficult, complicated truth, and someone else is going up against me and they're just saying shit, right? They're just saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do all these things perfectly. They have no idea how to do it, but they're going to get the money because they're telling the person with the money something that sounds great, sounds really impressive. They have a lot of confidence. Even in areas where I am more competent, that is a thing that happens. And so now, for the last 4 years, something I've talked about is like, okay, now I'm in this weird position where my professional life that I was working towards is gone now, and I'm doing a different thing, and no one really understands it. I said earlier, people don't know what interfaith is. Most of my friends and family don't really understand certainly what interfaith ministry is. By the way, I'll give you a hint. This is interfaith ministry. This right here. This is it. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. I don't know. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I said that already. So we're in this situation where everyone just feels all of this pressure to keep climbing, to keep growing, to keep more. And when we feel so desperate to keep getting more and more and more, we don't feel like we have time to listen to other people's perspectives. And so, of course, we're fighting over the idea of whose perspective is more valuable. And look, I will also acknowledge, like, as a white man, I'm not going to say we have it hard, but I will say that I understand when white men fear that the future does not include us. I think they're wrong, but I understand that fear. It has been my experience in multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-sexuality, gender orientation, multi-everything. In all of these spaces, I have been very comfortable and very welcome, and my voice has been welcome, and I've been able to contribute. And if the world were shutting out white men, that would probably not be the case. But a lot of that is because I am willing to go into those spaces with an open mind, and I am sometimes even willing to hear someone say, men suck, and not take it personally. I had something recently with a friend where she was just complaining about men and complaining about white men and all of these things. And I was like, yeah, so I understand that what you're saying is coming from a real place and coming from a place where you have experienced pain. And I understand that the words that you're saying are coming from that frustration. I will also remind you that I am a white man and like, that's not changing. And though I know you are talking about experiences that aren't because of me, it still feels a little like I'm getting lumped in there and it doesn't feel great. And she heard that and received it and was like, oh yeah, okay, that's reasonable, right? We were both able to understand that what she was feeling and reacting to was not actually about me. It was about her own painful experiences. And when I was saying that it still hurts my feelings, she was able to understand, oh, I see how that hurts your feelings. But that's not a conversation we're trained to have. White men, we're not trained to talk about our feelings at all. We are supposed to not have feelings. We are never supposed to have feelings because feelings are for women or weak people. right? That's what we're taught. We're supposed to dominate and be successful. I've talked about a lot of this stuff before in slightly different terms. But I think the heart of that attack on diversity that I mentioned earlier really comes from this place of insecurity and comes from a very real societal and economic pressure that all of us are experiencing. And so when I talk on this show, when I have talked about things like the need to redistribute more wealth because we don't need to have people in poverty, right? If you are in a situation where you are threatened with ending up in poverty, that is an emergency. And you're effectively a slave at that point, right? You need to do what someone tells you in order to have money to pay your rent, to buy food, whatever things you need to live. That's an emergency. That is a state of physical emergency that you cannot escape from. That is the kind of pressure, right? This pressure of, I will feel like a failure if I don't have a job. This pressure of, I am a failure if I'm not married, if women aren't attracted to me at my most dominant. I have feelings about dominance. I know I'm not supposed to have feelings. I have feelings about dominance. I think we're all sort of being put in this position where we're taught that we have to fight over everything, and there's so much going around, we do not need to be fighting over any of it. And if we can find a way to tweak our system so that we don't have to fight as much, so that that pressure is not as strong. And also as part of that, if we can learn to accept ourselves, right? I have had to learn to radically accept myself, even though I haven't had an income in a while. I have had to learn to accept friends of mine who are flawed, who believe things. I am also flawed, right? I've had to learn to accept all of these things, and that acceptance helps move into a place where I don't have to feel as competitive and where I can be more open-minded. And that's very, very hard to do when we have these cultural pressures. It's very, very hard to do when we have these economic pressures, and we're kind of stuck. And there is a future, right? There is a way forward. And that is not making things more scarce. That is not fighting over little things and fighting for demographic supremacy. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of resources. There's more than enough to go around. And this culture that says we need to dominate everyone to take our space is one that turns us against each other and makes everything into a stream of constant bullshit. Now, this is going to go live on Monday, but I am recording it on Friday, and Susie and I have a Friday tradition where we make dinner together. And so I want to go do that because it's going to be really nice. We're making khachapuri. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong too. It's a Georgian dish, like Georgia the country, not Georgia the state. It's delicious. We've never made it, but Susie is really, really good at making sourdough. So I think it'll be good. But I'm going to go do that. But I do really appreciate you being here. Also, hey, congratulations to me. I got approved to be an Interfaith Reverend. Yeah. Wait, what's this one? Yeah, that also. Yay me. Great. Anyway, thank you, friends. That's all we're going to do for today. But I will see you again sometime soon. In the meantime, let's play our way out of here. This is going to be take 2 because I got lost. Well, thank you, friend, for your visit today. Now it's time we both go on our way. The world will still be insane tomorrow, but don't let that fill your heart with sorrow. You can thrive in a desert, just ask a saguaro. Please give to my Patreon. Capitalism is fun. Let's build a world that is good. This is a show for adults. Bye, friends. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. I am grateful for you. Goodbye.